We are on the couch today again. Thank you for joining us. And our big topic today is how to thrive in a cross-cultural marriage, right?
Yes.
And, differences between people. It can be
embracing those differences.
Yes. It can be really challenging, and yet it can be so enriching. So we want to tap into this thing and hope that you will even contribute in the comments below. Tell us about your cross-cultural marriage experiences and what makes it work. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that today. Yes, so we are talking about cross-cultural marriages, and both of us are in cross-cultural marriages. You are married to a Kiwi girl, I am married to a Colombian girl. What's that like for you?
Ooh, it is loads and loads of fun, or as my wife might say, it's heaps of fun.
Ah,
new word?
Yeah,
I
right.
never used that word before I met my wife.
Every culture has its own special expressions, right? Its own language particularities.
Yeah.
Humor. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something.
Ever gotten into trouble telling a joke that she didn't find funny, or the other way around, you didn't find it funny?
She's probably not laughing right now.
Yeah, I've especially had that challenge because I guess, not that it's a competition, but I think the difference between cultures in my marriage compared to your marriage is even greater. My wife is Hispanic, she's from Colombia, yeah?
Yes.
And so it's a little bit like being married to Gloria from The Modern Family. She's going to kill me for saying that. But anyway, there's quite significant differences. And sometimes she'll look at me, especially in the early days of our marriage, and be like, well, why are you laughing? That's not funny. Or she will try and translate something that she's laughing her head off about. She's just been talking to her family or watching some Colombian TV show. And I'm like, well, what's so funny? And she'll translate it into English. And I'm like, don't get it.
Yeah.
Totally straight past me, right? So these are some of the challenges that come with cross-cultural marriages.
Yeah, even my wife and I, we both come from, you might say, a European-based cultural background. She is a European Kiwi. I am a Canadian-American, both from European descent.
Yep.
But even we both speak English, but our humor is very different. Now, sometimes I question, is this just because it's a guy-girl thing? But often I think it can be because of our cultural backgrounds and differences in those perspectives.
Yeah. Hey, one time when we were still living in South Africa, and we went around to see some friends. They were living just up the road from us. They were from the same church as us, and we were talking to them over the gate, and they had this big German Shepherd type dog. And my wife wanted to inquire about how long they typically live, but she said to them, "When's your dog gonna die?" and so there was this awkward moment there, but of course, and here's the key thing, I knew what she meant because I was married to her, and so I stepped in the gap there and said, what my wife is trying to say is, like, what's the life expectancy? And so there's things like that, like you got to have each other's back when you're in a cross-cultural marriage. As you get to know each other and you're in social settings, don't leave that other person out there hanging to dry. We've got to step in and encourage one another and be there for one another.
That's right. Sometimes I can make my wife feel a bit uncomfortable at times in the way I iterate or say things, or sometimes sitting in an audience at church, you'll be listening to the pastor, my pastor, and he'll be saying something, and it might be kind of funny, and I'll laugh out loud, and the whole audience is dead quiet. They're silent, and I'm laughing, and my wife is feeling like, you should be quiet at this moment. Not laughing, and it can make her feel uncomfortable, but we still sit in the same pew together.
Hey, just this morning I was talking to my wife and about this very thing of cross-cultural marriage, and she happened to be hanging up some laundry, and I was standing there talking, and she said to me, "Adrian, you've become a great Colombian man." Yeah. I said, "Wow, that sounds great. Why is that?" "Well, because you're standing there talking, watching the woman do all the work." and so this raises, although this is a bit of a funny instance, it actually raises this idea that in cross-cultural marriages, we may come to it with very different ideas of roles and expectations.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've been very hands-on with my children, right? Like I get up at night and I see to them, I do the nappy changes, and my wife did all of those things too. But the point is that we kind of negotiated a family dynamic that is actually quite different from her culture, from my culture. It became our own family culture, where we both We both entered into a partnership in these things, but it doesn't always work like that. And so as you are coming into a cross-cultural marriage, make sure that you understand some of those dynamics, because it can alleviate stress or feeling like you've been left out, or that you're not participating because you're not this, that, or the next thing. But there might be cultural difference there, you know. So these are some examples.
I really like that, Adrian, that, you know, in your relationship with your wife, that you've rather than putting undue expectations on each other, you've learned how to adapt and to cultivate.
Learning as an ongoing, continuous present tense.
Learning how to adapt and to create your new family culture. And usually every home, it can cultivate and make its own new family bubble. What is that going to look like for them? They each take some of their special heritages and insights from their families, but bring it together, and they can create something new and beautiful together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hey, remember, before you married this person, you knew that they were Hispanic or Russian or Canadian or French or whatever. There was something about that. There was something about that attracted you to them. And it's so important in a cross-cultural marriage that you don't come to a place where you almost think your culture is either more important or superior to the other person's culture, especially if you end up living in a country where one of those two cultures is predominant. It's very easy to think, well, this is the way it should be, or this is, but actually you fell in love with that person. You wanted them for their uniqueness, and part of that was their culture. So I think that a key to success when it comes to cross-cultural marriage is never lose the wonder and the willingness to step into another's world. Right? Like we've got to invest ourselves. You are who you are, and they are who they are. But in this marriage, we're actually going to step into their world, and we're going to invite them to step into our world. So let's learn one another's expressions and jokes and humor. Let's get inside their head and learn how they think, how they see the world. I mean, that's part of the enriching experience of being in a cross-cultural marriage.
That's right.
If you're going to want to make the other person just like you, don't do that to them. Don't get into that marriage.
You know, I think this really brings out an important perspective, a biblical perspective, that from another married individual, a guy by the name of Peter in the Bible. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7, he says some very powerful advice to any married couple out there. Peter says, husbands, so he's addressing husbands there in 1 Peter 3:7, but he says, you should be understanding as you live with your wife. Be understanding towards your wife. Now that's not the direct verbatim of the text, but the principle is the same, is that for whether you are a husband or whether you're a wife, that as you live together in that relationship, be willing to be understanding, or be understanding to what they're saying. I like what you were saying there earlier about putting yourself in their perspective. What would they be thinking? How would they be feeling when they're saying this? Often we might think, oh, well, they're just attacking me, or they're misunderstanding me, but let's go beyond outside of that argument and be like, well, what are they thinking in that moment? Why are they saying this? Put yourself in their shoes before you jump to conclusions. Let's have an open mindset.
Another Bible verse that's addressed to men, but I think goes in both directions, is this Ephesians chapter 5. You know, husbands, love your wives like Christ has loved the church. This idea that it's that sacrificial, all invested, all in kind of love. Want to see no harm come to you. Want to redeem and build up. And I think if we could love each other like that, there's no differences that can actually pull us apart. No cultural differences. No linguistic differences. It's never a cross-cultural problem that separates people. It's a failure to love properly. It's a failure to do the basics of what the Bible tells us are healthy relationships. So if your marriage or your relationship with someone is falling apart because they're different culturally, I want to suggest to you that it has actually nothing to do with culture. Maybe it's because we're not actually understanding how the Bible calls us to love one another and to love those who are different to us. So I think if we follow the basic scriptural principles, cross-cultural marriages would not be something that leads to the end of a marriage. It would be something that would enrich us.
Yes.
Think about the different foods we enjoy, the different customs, the different types of holidays that we would, think about the enrichment for our children. Like, there are so many beautiful things that come from cross-cultural marriages. You can even widen the gene pool, and make cuter kids. There's just so many benefits. Seeing different parts of the world, getting to know different people. Like, these are all incredible adventures But when it comes home to roost, when we're in our own homes with one another, let's simply follow the biblical instruction and counsel. Think of the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness.
By your emphasis of those ones, I think we might need those ones a little bit more. Patience.
Yeah.
Kindness.
And here's the radical idea. Actually, every marriage is a cross-cultural marriage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like I might come from the same town, speak the same language, go to the same church, but wakey, you are two different people. And, I guess when you go into a cross-cultural marriage, you know the other person's different. And so it's like you're ready for it. Whereas I think a lot of people go into marriage thinking they're not cross-culturally different, and therefore when they wake up one day and realize we are quite different people, sometimes it comes as this huge big shock and surprise.
Culture shock.
We want to invite you, the viewer, into this discussion by leaving your comments, your thoughts, your advice, your warnings, whatever it might be, in the comment section, because other people who watch this video may scroll down and read that and be enriched even beyond what we've mentioned on the couch here.
Yeah, we're not the end all to this conversation. There's so much more that could be said, so
Absolutely.
Please add your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe, do all of those good things. Share this, so hopefully these words can be a blessing to someone else, and we will catch you next time right here on the couch.